The indefinite strike by labor unions in Nigeria continues today. After hours of fresh negotiations and deliberation on day one of the NLC-TUC indefinite industrial action, the federal government says it has agreed to pay more than the $60,000 it initially proposed as new minimum wage. The decision was taken at a meeting the government had with labor leaders on Monday night in Abuja to address the dispute over the national minimum wage in response to the nationwide strike declared by the organized labor. The meeting, held in the office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation on Monday evening, aimed to resolve the impasse and bring an end to the industrial action that have paralyzed various sectors across the country.
The President, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, Federal Republic of Nigeria, His Excellency Bola Ahmed Tinubu GCFR, is committed to a national minimum wage that is higher than 60,000. Arising from the above, the tripartite committee is to meet every day for the next 1 week with a view to arriving at an agreeable national minimum wage. Labor, in deference to the high esteem of the President, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, Federal Republic of Nigeria, is committed in paragraph 3 sub 2 above, and undertakes to convene a meeting of its organs immediately to consider this commitment.
Joining us now is Benson Upah, Head of Department of Information, Nigeria Labour Congress. Good morning, Mr. Upah, and thank you for joining us. There were 3 major resolutions at the end of the meeting with Labour. 3 major resolutions.
Good morning, Dr. Bati.
Yeah, morning. Thank you for joining us. 3 major resolutions at the end of the Monday meeting with organized labor. One, the federal government is committed to an agreement beyond, above 60,000 naira. Now, what is labor still looking at? Because labor has climbed down from 615 to 494. The federal government also said nobody will be victimized. And 3, that meetings will be held on a daily basis. Today, organized labor has also called a meeting. Do we expect, on the basis of the meeting yesterday and the 3 major resolutions, that labor will call off the strike today?
Well, thank you very much for your question, Dr. Bati. It's my pleasure to be here with you again. Quite frankly speaking, I cannot predict what the outcome of today's meeting will be. The final outcome resides with the National Executive Council meeting of the NLC and National Executive Council meeting of the TUC. But let me also use the opportunity to say that we are not fixated on any figure per se. You recall our first offer was 615,000. We climbed down and we're now on 494. But let me be emphatic about this. Our fixation is with value. If today government takes the needed decisions to create value around the naira, we'll be ready to take a figure that is realistic. You'll recall, Dr. Bati, 1981, that the national minimum wage was 125 naira, and it served its purpose. That 125 naira was an equivalent of $188. So if government takes the requisite decision that will create value around the naira, fine, we'll be ready to take a figure that is fair and square. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I just wanted you to respond to, the statement by the spokesperson to the president, and also what a number of people have said in terms of the fact that the 494,000 naira you're asking for would have consequent negative impact on the economy. And yes, I hear you that if you can make the naira stronger, it would all go well for perhaps a reduction in what you're asking, but that cannot happen in the immediate. Would organized labor be willing to compromise in the interim whilst the government works on, you know, these suggestions you've given? Is there any room for that kind of compromise in your negotiation?
Yeah, first and foremost, I would want to say that the government can take an immediate decision that can create value around the naira. After the decision it took that brought the naira to this all-time low was by fiat. That's one. Two, the government did not consult with anybody before it took that the decision to float the naira, knowing full well that the naira, knowing full well that Nigeria is an import-dependent economy. Okay? Then, secondly, government took the decision to raise tariff a whopping 250%. And my sister, I want to say, if you as much as raise energy tariff by 10% in any of the Western capitals, there will be a revolution. High energy tariffs are not good for business. Briefly, let me speak to 4 issues that have imperiled our economy, that killed the naira. The first is the ill-advised removal of fuel subsidy instead of dealing with the criminal content of the subsidy. You recall Mr. President himself did admit about the presence and existence of a cabal. He didn't deal with that. He instead chose to deal with Nigerians. The second reason is the mindless devaluation of the naira, which took it from 350 to 1,900 naira, stabilizing or hovering around 1,006. The third is the tariff hike. The fourth is the 26.5% interest rate. When you look at all of this, the environment becomes highly toxic for business. And instantly, manufacturers say, look, our warehouses are overflowing. But I tell you, that is even the tip of the iceberg. In the coming weeks or in the coming months, there'll be more consequences. Okay? So why is government obsessed with extreme market reforms that do not benefit anybody, not even the business sector? Government is not concerned about taking care of the business sector at home. It's concerned chasing outside investors. Foreign direct investment from outside, that comes at a huge cost. Why would the government not intervene on behalf of big business and small business? The MOU we signed with government on the 2nd of October 2023, we said government should intervene, should take necessary steps to help businesses grow here. But government has taken decisions that are at variance with a commitment it made in writing. So government did all of this by fiat. So it can as well take a decision today and say, look, we have decided to retrace our steps. We are no longer taking dictations from the IMF or the World Bank. This has not paid off. We do not manufacture or sell anything other than crude oil. So we should create value around the naira. And it stays.
Okay.
I'm sure that sounds crude to the ears of economists.
Mr. Upah, I'm excited. You know, we had our Higridi-Bigridi the last time you were here. I'm excited for some of the arguments you're making.
Yes.
And I support most of your arguments. In fact, let me make some arguments better for you. As regards the electricity tariff, in Ghana currently, the Ghanaians are revolting as regards a 4% increase in electricity tariff. But this government gave us well over 50% electricity tariff increase. So that's to make your argument better for you. It doesn't mean we'll not say disagree. We'll disagree this morning, no. But let me make it better for you first. So you are right and spot on that.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Doctor.
Yeah. So the other part of your argument I even want to make for you is that government keeps saying, how are we going to pay? How are they paying the National Assembly members that are earning big fat salaries? That they are earning millions of naira in allowances? How are they paying even the labor minister that is negotiating all our allowances? How are they paying them?
How are they paying them?
Yeah, didn't the same government...
How are they paying the councillors? How are they paying the councillors?
Didn't the same government take a supplementary budget last year to buy cars for National Assembly members, which we all protested against?
Save me trouble.
So I'm making your argument for you. But let me tell you why I would disagree with you. Let's go to the disagreement. The disagreement is this.
Yes.
My problem with Labour is the nebulousness of your argument. Now you are saying that if they add value to the naira, you can get a reasonable amount. 494,000 looks at a reasonable amount to this 1,600 exchange rate threshold. The thing is, you were talking by fear. The thing is, it's going to hurt us if government starts to defend the naira again and pump money by fiat, because we lost about over $1 billion in our reserves. So, as we speak today, I'd like to ask you a question. What would be a fair amount at a calculation of 1,500 naira to the dollar that would be fair cost for labor? I think labor should be able to have that number in calculation based on their inflation calculation of 33%.
Thank you very much. First of all, let me say I feel honored by your act of courage, by way of speaking out in the matters of high energy rate in Ghana and all of that, and also payment of wages for political office holders. That does not hurt the economy. But before I come to your substantive question, let me say that the last time wages were reviewed for workers, it was not more than 45%. Wages were reviewed for political office holders by over 400%. And much more recently, they did a review, which they said they are yet to implement. That one is 143%. Nobody complains about that. You are acutely aware of the fact that political office holders, from councillors to anything, their wages are the same. It does not matter, the economic status of the state. They are stamped up there. And we're talking about what they take on top of the table, not what they take under the table or under the side or by the side of the table. Government does not complain about how that affects, the treasury. It is when we talk about, say, create a benchmark below which no one should be paid. Protect the vulnerable, protect the weak, so that you don't create communities of the working poor. Because poverty is infectious, and you can't cure poverty with poverty. You cure poverty with wealth. So all that is what we have been saying, that create a national minimum wage that can stimulate capacity, stimulate production, that can create synergy. That's what we've been talking about. Consequences, this country is used to consequences. So if whatever decision it takes that makes the life of Nigerians better, whatever price it pays for that will be seen as a patriotic price. That is one. Now coming to your figure, coming to a realistic figure, realistic now in quote, 60,000 is equivalent to about $37 at the present exchange rate. In the early hours of this morning, when the VOA asked me questions and I responded, they said, is it $37 per day? And I said, no, $37 for 30 days for a family of 6. That's what we are talking about here. So for me, what figure labor we consider as fair and reasonable given our situation will be a figure that can take a family of 6 home without meat. We are ready to do that too. Labor is prepared to consider what I call prison rations, but let it take a family of 6 home. You should do the mathematics for me. Thank you.
Well, Mr. Upah, one problematic thing in this whole conversation is about 1, capacity to pay, 2, productivity. some of these workers in private companies and even in civil service who are very unproductive. You are making a case for them to also be paid. So, I mean, how do we factor these variables into it? Capacity to pay, particularly on the part of government and private sector, and also productivity on the side of the worker, which is not something that is given. However, I would like you to respond to one poser. And this is from Mr. Bayo Ononuga, spokesperson for President Tinubu, who says that Labour is taking this position about minimum wage and also, you know, electricity tariff hike because Labour, organized Labour is playing politics. That you guys are members of the Labour Party and that you are Labour Party sympathizers, whereas the election ended in 2023. What do you say to these issues?
Well, first of all, let me speak to the question of capacity. Directly speaking, FAC allocations move from 700 billion to 1.2 trillion at the moment. That is what they declared. What they failed to declare could be twice or three times the value of what they declared. That is one. Then two, you see, for you to be able to pay, you've got to take the needed decisions, the necessary decisions. Government will need to reverse some of the decisions that have made the environment very toxic. I had said in this forum before that 40% of big business has been wiped out. 30% of the next group of business gone. 60% of small businesses obliterated. And I speak with you, Barrister Abati, as I speak with you, let me tell you this. In the next couple of weeks, maximum 1 or 2 months, you'll be hearing from the joint venture side of the economy. The oil companies are divesting. Why isn't government concerned that this is happening? Why is government more concerned about going for foreign direct investment while the businesses at home are collapsing? Does government think that those people it is going after do not have intelligence on what is going on in this country? They do have. And when they even choose to come, at what cost is it to this country? So government needs to check itself. There is something that has gone fundamentally wrong, and it has to be readdressed. Once it is readdressed, I take you back to 1981. Businesses paid, in fact, they were ready to pay double what the government of Shehu Shagari paid. They want 25 naira. Businesses were ready to double that because there was productive capacity. Nigeria's size has not changed since then. The economy, we are told, is the biggest in Africa. At that time, the economy was not the biggest in Africa. Today, it's the biggest in Africa, with a huge internal market, with a captive regional market. All government needs to do is crank it, and this elephant will get up. It will move. It will carry everybody along. But at the moment, we are talking about symptoms and we are treating symptoms. Government needs to check itself. Why is business space is shutting down? So once that is done, we are good to go. There is, in fact, there is both latent and manifest capacity, Dr. Bati.
Well, sir, Mr. Bayo Ononuga has issued a statement saying that
hey, Bayo Ononuga,
politicians,
okay, thank you very
not
much.
labor leaders. He says.
Wait. Thank you very much for that prompter. Well, I do not intend to go personal. I've responded to Bayo Ononuga. I used to think of him much more highly than I do now, because now he resorts to base argument. The right to hold a political opinion is guaranteed by our Constitution and a Supreme Court pronouncement. Barrister Bati, you're acutely aware of that. I'm not sure Labour people are excluded from that right. That is my first position. Secondly, we actually promoted a political party. And it has been consistent with our history. We fought in the front lines to ensure this country obtained its independence. Pai Modu was in London as part of the independence talks. In the military era, with all due respect, we were in the trenches, fought the military to a stance. The military said, okay, we are going to have a democracy where we are the bio-nanogas of this world. Even as we speak now, we are the only reliable voice that can speak to power at the risk to our lives. Okay? So we have been consistent from pre-independence to military era and to a democratic era. This is not the first time we are taking on a government. Right from 1999, presidency of Chief Obasanjo, we engaged consistently. We engaged Yaradua. We engaged Jonathan. You recall January 2012. So all of that, Bayo didn't see political sentiments. I want to assure you, speaking directly, that we have no political sentiments. Our sentiments in this matter are pure, patriotic, and in the interest of this country. Let me tell you, a few days ago, the leadership of NLC and TUC came back from Kebbi State. They went to celebrate with an APC government. On his inauguration, we were there. A year ago, we were there. Before then, we campaigned for him because he embodies our ideals. He pursues our ideals, policies that are consistent with our ideological beliefs and so on and so forth. I say this live on live television, live feed. Let me tell you, Oti, Governor Oti of Abia State, if he does anything, Governor Oti, who won the election on the platform of Labour Party, if he does anything that is at variance with our beliefs, we will disown him. If we caution him and he fails to change, we will disown him. So ours is not about labels. Ours are impregnable, inalienable ideological beliefs, issues that are consistent with uplifting what we call the national interest and protecting the poor. So, but then scoundrels will always resort to ethnicity, partisan politics, and religion.
All right, thank you.
I rest my case.
Thank you, Mr. Upah. Now, I hear you when you talk about you're working for the interests of the people, the country, and especially the most vulnerable. But then what would you respond to the Honorable Minister of State for Labour, where she says that by this action, you're impoverishing Nigerians. You're putting Nigerians, a lot of Nigerians are suffering. People are plunged into poverty. People who depend on their daily livelihood, who now have to shut down or down their tools, are suffering. So you are impoverishing the same people that you say that you are defending. I'd like you to respond to that, to that statement on that. Is that, are you are you cutting off your nose to spite your face?
Well, let me be emphatic about this once again. And I go back in history. When it was decided that sanctions be applied against Southern Rhodesia and South Africa, Margaret Thatcher, Prime Minister of Britain, as she then was, said sanctions were going to hurt the ordinary people. But of course, people saw through the facade of her argument, and sanctions were imposed. And we had an independent Zimbabwe in 1979-80 under the leadership of General Obasanjo, as he then was. Nigeria went to also lend the same support in Angola, Mozambique, and the rest. So when people now talk that our strike is going to hurt the people, I begin to marvel. The people or the institutions that have been hurting the people are the governments. Or let me reduce it to, is the government. All that we're trying to do, all that we've been trying to do is to ensure that there is a cure. Okay? We are not the ones hurting the people. It is the government that has been hurting the people. And let me also say this. Going back, we were reviewing certain video clips, and we came across this one, where Mr. President, during his electioneering campaign, did say he was going to reduce the capacity of the people. He was going to raise taxes. He was going to raise the purchasing power of the people. Up to this very moment, we still marvel what his intentions are. Because it looks like what is going on is a premeditated action to punish the people. It is not us who are punishing the people. It is the fundamentalists, it is the fundamentalist labor reforms of this administration.
Sir. Okay, sir. I mean, I was excited when you mentioned Paimodu. In fact, I was just looking at the newspaper portion where he was released after 2 years in incarceration, and God bless his memory. But I'd like to ask you this as we wrap up. Is it the $100 mark for minimum wage or less than that? That would be a good deal for labor?
You know, there is something I like about you. I'm sorry I have to say this on air. You are Larry King, Stephen Sakor, because you do your research work. You go to the archives, you read. You don't just begin to, so $100, $125, $150, but certainly not anything less than $100, Dr. Bati.
Okay. Thank you so much for the threshold.
Thank you, Mr. Benson Upah, for joining.